Hey everybody, Havoc here, coming to you with another French tank review. If you watched my tank reviews yesterday, I did the AMX CDC, and it kind of prompted me to go ahead and do the FCM 50T, because an age-old question between me and my friends would be, which is the better premium French tank? Is it the FCM 50T or the AMX CDC? So I'm going to answer that question the best I can by doing a tank review, a follow-up tank review on the FCM 50T. All I have is this Liberté. If you guys remember when the French line was released out on console, the very first French tank available was the hero version of the FCM 50T, the Liberté. It's just like the one you'll find in the tech tree if you want to purchase the FCM 50T right now, except this one has this hideous hero paint job. Much like the Czechoslovakian tanks were released, and the first tank they let out a week beforehand was the premium tank, the Skoda T40, which they had a hero version called the Ziska. So Liberté is no different. You're going to see a lot more Libertés out there because the French FCM 50T has not been released until recently in the tech tree. If you want to purchase it and you don't have this tank, it is relatively expensive, especially in comparison to the AMX CDC. I'm going to go ahead and say that's because the CDC was given away for free in an operation last year, and most people have it, so I think they're going to have a hard time selling the CDC, especially because on Black Friday they also sold a black version. As you know from my review yesterday, I have the black version on my other account. So the CDC is going to be pretty hard sell for Wargaming right now. It doesn't show it right here because I've already got it. I think it's like 7,000 gold versus the FCM 50T, which is pretty expensive at almost 12,000 gold. I understand that if you were looking at the two tanks trying to decide which one to buy, you would probably go with the cheaper one, being the AMX CDC. I'm here to answer the question as to why you should maybe consider the FCM 50T and the comparisons between the two tanks. But clearly it's much more expensive to do the FCM 50T. If you do get the FCM 50T, it will be kind of a rarity out there. You'll be able to put cool looking French camo on it because most of the tanks, most of the FCMs you're going to see out there are going to be this Liberté version, which, as I said, are quite ugly with the paint job. So if you do buy one from the tech tree, go ahead and camo it out and look stylish on the battlefield. But the rest of us will be driving our old Libertés that look like this. When I got the AMX CDC, I first said that, right away I said that the Liberté was going to be obsolete. I might as well sell the tank. I'm not going to need it anymore because I have an AMX CDC. And now going back, I'm a different player, and I'm looking at these two tanks, and I have to make an argument that was incorrect. Luckily, I didn't sell the Liberté, as you can see, but recently I've been playing it a lot, and I've come to really appreciate some of the things that come with the FCM 50T. As I've been doing with my tank reviews, I know you guys are really busy, barely have time to watch these tank reviews, so I'm going to have to just hurry up as fast as I can to get through it, because nobody wants to listen to me talk about these tanks. All they want to know about is the equipment, I think, and the crew skills and the consumables, and then they all want to just skip ahead to gameplay, or that's what I'm being told, that everybody wants that, and nobody wants to see a video that lasts for 50 minutes, even though I would say most of it would be gameplay. I only have one clip of gameplay, so this video won't be very long, but for those of you who need to know right now, here is the equipment. Really no surprise here. The staple items that I always use, especially in tanks like this: large gun rammer, vertical stabilizer. In every tank in the game I go for those. Those are staple items for me. And then in this case we're going to do coated optics. One of the reasons coated optics is so important is, I really just noticed this, by the way, the other day. The view range on this tank is 400 meters of view range, and as a tier 8 tank to have 400 meters of view range, that is the best in the game. That is equal to the Pershing, which I was under the impression had the best tier 8 view range in the game, and it was unparalleled by any other tank, and apparently I'm wrong. So the FCM 50T equals the Pershing in the most view range you'll see at tier 8. So I try to maximize when I find a tank has an edge in a certain field. I try to maximize that, so I'm going to go with coated optics, and now we're going to talk about crew skills real quick. I'm going to go with situational awareness. It's not my first crew skill, but it's definitely something I'm going to want to maximize. I want to maximize view range with this Liberté. I like to do that with all my tanks if I can, but especially when I saw that it had 400 meters of view range, you're going to need it, especially because the concealment value is garbage. I mean, you don't really have any camo with this tank. So as I talk about in all my reviews, spotting is a war between view range and camo. This tank is heavy on view range, not so much on camo. So you're going to want to try and work on that in order to become the best spotter. Not that this is the role that this tank fills. It's a support heavy. It's not much of a spotting tank. But in my opinion, too, this is a carry tank. Just like the CDC, this tank can carry games. And in order to carry games, especially when it comes to the end and you're outnumbered, view range is huge. And if you don't have it, you're really not going to be able to carry a game. If you do have it, anything's possible. You can win. You can Caliban off 5-on-1 if your view range is really that superior to the remaining tanks in the other team. So it's something that I like to leave open as an option. As I said, with my crew skills, the way I'm going to do it is Sixth Sense, Brothers in Arms. I'm going to do Snapshot, and then I'm probably going to do either Smooth Ride or Situational Awareness. And then after that, you can just decide between Recon, Camo, or maybe even Repairs. Unlike the CDC, where I felt like clutch braking was really, really important because you want to do some flanking maneuvers later in the game. You want to do some circle of deaths and stay ahead of people's barrels as they turn around trying to shoot you. That's not really what this tank does. You don't have that kind of mobility. It's not a slow tank, but it's not an AMX CDC. You're really not going to try and go there with this tank. So clutch braking, off-road driving, sure, they would be nice in the future, but it's not a top priority skill item right away. It's Sixth Sense, Brothers in Arms, Snapshot, Situational Awareness, Smooth Ride, Recon, Repairs. Those are the important things. So those are crew skills. Here's real quick supplies. Much like the AMX CDC, the exact same ammo loadout, I believe, as far as the amount of shells that you can carry. You can carry way more shells than you possibly need, so you can carry a little bit of everything. I think with the CDC, I did like 55, 25, 10. You could do that, no problem with this. I just randomly have this selected, but either way, it's a ton of AP. And your APCR is just like the AMX CDC. It's got great pen, great shell velocity. Really, you end up using a lot of. If you use APCR on this tank, it's usually because the shell velocity makes you so much more accurate to hit tanks on the move. That's what it comes down to. But with a 259 penetration and the fact that you're not seeing tier 10 tanks, APCR is more than you need in this tank. Oh, real quick, I'm not running a premium consumable. This tank is really great for making silver, much like the AMX CDC, but it has a 20% chance of firing the engine, which is 5% more than the CDC. Plus, it doesn't have the same play style as the AMX CDC. It's not that constantly running away sniper. So you're going to have to be a little bit more careful with this tank. I decided to go with fire extinguisher, mainly because of silver. I have just a ton of manual fire extinguishers sitting around in reserve. So it's basically like free manual fire extinguishers. And I'm trying to make some money with this tank right now. So I went with small everything. I don't really miss the premium consumable, but if you want to run it, I don't blame you. I run premium consumable on a lot of tanks. So that's a decision for you to make. So that's equipment. That's consumables, and that's crew skills. Talk about the tank real quick again. Just trying to compare this to the AMX CDC. AMX CDC has a slightly better rate of fire, a slightly better aim time, and a better accuracy. None of which are significant, by the way. I mean, it has 8.22 rounds per minute. Aim time is 2.2. Accuracy is 0.34. Yes, it's better, but it's not really a significant amount better. And then the penetration is the same between these two tanks, between the CDC and the FCM 50T. The difference being, again, the 50T doesn't see tier 10 tanks. So this is only against tier 9 tanks. To have that same penetration, that same gun, is pretty impressive when you don't see tier 10 tanks. We went over view range and how amazing the view range is on this tank. Real quick, I gotta mention this too. Armor. We'll go over engine here real quick, and then I'll talk about armor. The reason I'm talking about engine is because this is not a CDC. The CDC boasts over 35 horsepower to ton ratio. It's one of the most, it's one of the fastest, most maneuverable mobile tanks in the game, with 57 kilometers per hour top speed. This is not the same tank. It's not slow. Again, it is not slow, but it's a support heavy, and it is nowhere near the AMX CDC. It's almost half the power to weight ratio. 51 kilometers per hour is still pretty good top speed, and as I mentioned, it has 20% fire chance of fire in the engine, so you're really risky to go with premium consumable over fire extinguisher in this tank. But I want to talk about ammo or armor, because what you lose in maneuverability when you go from CDC to FCM 50T, you do gain armor. The AMX CDC is famous for having no armor whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying the armor on this tank is a great or amazing, but you have turret armor, you have a gun mantlet, and you have some front plate, upper plate armor. The lower plate is super thin, really hard to hit, honestly. Yes, it's got no armor value really to speak of. So if they hit you in the lower plate, they're definitely going to pen. But here's the thing, it's such a small little lower plate. If they're going to try and pen you from the front, they're going to go right through your front upper plate. Which, it's not a lot of armor, but there's some there. So if you kind of can catch it maybe at like an angle like this, or if they do end up going into your gun mantlet, you might get a bounce here and there. This tank does get some bounces, unlike the CDC, which rarely ever bounces anything. So, FCM 50T versus AMX CDC, you're trading in that incredible maneuverability for a little bit of armor. The CAC has a little bit better of a gun, but the Liberté only sees tier 9 tanks at tops. So, in the argument between CDC and Liberté, or FCM 50T, I would say that the FCM 50T has a slight advantage because the tanks are so similar, and yet this one has a pref matchmaking. And that's my final verdict. I'm going to go on to some gameplay. I'm going to try and do some commentary during the gameplay as well. And I'll see you guys out there. Thanks for watching. Alright, going to do some commentary on this gameplay clip. The map is Karelia. My map strategy with Karelia is relatively simple. I always try to secure the hill on the southeast corner of the map. It depends on the mobility of the tank that I'm in, but in this case I think this tank is mobile enough to give it a try. Very important here is to look at the tanks that are on the opposite team before you attempt to try and get up on that hill. I almost always try and go up on that hill, especially if I'm in a somewhat mobile tank. With that being said, if there's 3 top tier mediums on the other team and I know they're faster than me and I know that I get to that top of the hill and there's going to be 3 mediums waiting there for me, if my team isn't going to go up there with me, then I have to really consider about maybe abandoning the idea of winning the top of that hill. In this case, if you want to rewind and go look at the tank list, they really don't have anything that's formidable with speed. They have a lot of slower tanks, and as you can see right away, very important for map strategy. Watch where your team goes initially. They moved quickly, which is very helpful, and I can see that they are going in force to where I marked on the map and that we're going to take this hill as a team, and that is great, and I can go with confidence up here. As you're going to see in a moment too, it's very important to note that there's no artillery. But right away, like I said, there's not a lot of tanks in the other team that I was worried about getting up here that are fast enough. Their mediums obviously aren't showing up. There's a Super Pershing, which is not a fast medium. So as I go to the top of this hill here, again, I want to point out there is no artillery. Here is where it would be important if there was, because when you're lit and you're going to the top of this hill, because I'm lit right now, artillery loves to hit this peak right here. But there's no artillery, so I can just kind of turn the corner. I know there's really no tanks up here because the light tank came right around here at first. So now I'm at a really advantageous position, shooting down on top of the Super Pershing and the KV-13. These poor guys tried to get out behind rocks, behind cover in the middle bottom area here. They now have realized that my entire team is coming with me, and they are stuck out in the open, so I'm just going to farm on this KV-13, whose armor is really no match to my 212 millimeters of AP penetration. As I said, it's really great with this tank that you can just shoot AP and pen regularly. So I don't need to use any APCR rounds, even on a Russian medium like the KV-13, no problem. Super Pershing, I'm going to have to find him on the side, which won't be hard because he's in a terrible position as well, and they're both, really exposed out there. So now this Gornich comes out. He's going to try and save his teammates. Gornich is a real formidable opponent, really tough armor. I switched to APCR, and I'm going to start to be able to pen him in the side. But it's just gonna have to be a perpendicular penetration. If he's at any angle at all, I'm probably gonna bounce. That's how trolly that KV-5 armor is, as you can see. Oh, actually, I penned that one. But I'm gonna bounce a couple shots on him. It's pretty frustrating, but we have to get him out of there. He's starting to back up now, realizing that he's put himself into a situation. So once the Gornich is out of here, I can move to a position that I really want to be in. Again, there's no artillery, which is huge. If there was artillery right now, I don't think I could hang out here. I probably would have gotten hit really hard by now. So see, as I move forward, now that we got the Gornich out of there, now the KV-13's out of there, I'm going to move forward to this area where I'm a little bit safer to the left. And I'm angling for a shot behind the Super Pershing, who I need to back up in order to shoot him from behind. And then luckily, you're going to see here in a minute, my team's going to actually, this heavy does a great thing, and he just face hugs him, and he actually pushes him backwards, which exposes his rear end, and I can shoot him here in the back and kill him. But really what it's about is turning this corner. So this is a safe spot here. As you can see, the hill kind of juts out to protect me. Now, it's clear that they are not pushing around this corner. If anything, they're falling back into a defensive position. And this is a really important point here. Once you've won this hill, how far do you want to push into them here? Because as they fall back, their defensive position comes stronger and stronger, and now we're going to start pushing into a place where they have the advantage. If I come around this corner, they are having the advantage at this point. So I'm kind of just poking and feeling. As you can see, I'm really healthy. I'm not taking a lot of fire. I'm really not taking any. And I do have a little bit of turret armor to work with here, so we'll see. Until I have a reason to stop pushing, I'm going to push more and more and more. If I was, in a lighter, maybe in the CDC, I don't know how far I'd push in there, just because I know I have 0 armor, so no chance of bouncing. But so far, my AP penetration's working for me here. And I'm getting shots at. Now here's a Liberté. That's definitely, even with the 212 millimeters of AP penetration, which is really great at tier 8, you're definitely looking for softer targets, and that's a point I want to make in this game. If you can make the difference between shooting a KV-5 and shooting a Liberté, or in this case shooting a hold down T-29 versus shooting a Liberté, shoot the Liberté, shoot the targets that are easier to pen, and work on the hard targets later. And that's going to become very important in this gameplay, as you see at the very end of the game. And I wish I would have focused on that a little bit more. I just snapped off a shot into the T-54 Mod 1's turret ring. Pretty lucky pen. I'm sure that the pen roll for my shot there was pretty high. It's 212 millimeters of penetration, which is great with the AP round, but I think I got the high roll on that one. Unlucky for the T-54 Mod 1 to get penned in the turret ring like that. But I had nothing to lose. I'd already made up my mind that I was going to go to the top of this hill, that I was no longer going to push into them around that corner into their strong point. I wanted to come up here and see what kind of sniping I can do, so I just figured I'd let that shell go and see what happens, and just happened to pen his turret ring. So now you're going to see sniping. Luckily, we have a light tank on the other side of the map who's able to light their northern tanks. So I'm going to be doing some sniping with a gun that is definitely a snipe-worthy gun at tier 8. Couples, it's not the greatest gun in the world for sniping, but .36 accuracy is not unusual for this tier. One thing I want to point out here right away, it's coming up, is that it's a map awareness issue. I'm not exactly known for my map awareness, but as far as map awareness and map strategy goes, look at the tanks that they have left. Look at the tank count. It's a very even game. It is an even game. And we don't know where all their tanks are. Actually, it's a team destruction, so there's no capping involved. We don't have to worry about them capping. But I don't know where all their tanks are. I know where 4 of their tanks are, and there's a lot of tanks left. So when this person starts marking the map that we're about to be flanked, it makes all the sense in the world. I know that there was 2 tanks north. The 1 tank destroyer went dark, so we know the tank destroyer is up there somewhere. He's dark. But as this person keeps marking the map, that we're about to be flanked, it makes all the sense in the world that we will be flanked. So I come down here to just peek around this corner and see what's coming up behind us. Here we have a light tank. That's not really too much of an issue, although he is an auto loader. But he pulled back. Now we have a Tiger 1, which is great. I'm in an advantageous position right here, using this corner as defense. And then this KV-4 shows up. He's full health. He's going to ruin what would have been a great farming session on the Tiger 1. The T-71 decides to make a really aggressive, YOLO push right here. If the KV-4 had come with him, we would probably be in big trouble right now. But for some reason, the KV-4 doesn't really turn around the corner, doesn't rush me. I get lucky to hit that T-71 on his way out. I still had APCR loaded for the KV-4, and it was very helpful there because of the shell velocity so much higher. That's a waste of a shell right there. This is a good point here where you want to pick the easier target and get it out of there. So I should be putting all my shells, and I'm going to switch to AP here so that you can see my mindset, which is let's pen the Tiger 1 while we have a pennable target here. That was a shame. That shell went really low and went into his tracks, but we'll get the Tiger 1 out of here. But the difference between wasting shells and time and potentially taking fire from a KV-4 versus just farming on a Tiger 1 when I'm in an advantageous position over him. Again, I want to make that distinction there, that right away, the Tiger 1 was the target I should have been focusing on, just because he's something I can get rid of. You're going to see right here, clearly I've learned by now that I need APCR to pen the cupola of the KV4. I wish I didn't, but I definitely put enough shots in there with AP and didn't get any pens. And as soon as I switched to APCR, I'm penning his cupola regularly. So clearly that's the case. I need APCR to pen the KV4. And I'm just going to finish farming him here. So, points I wanted to make just to end the game was map awareness. Know what tanks are on the other team before you try and take a hill where you might be showing up there and it's 4v1 and they are ready for you. And map awareness, pay attention to how many tanks are left in the other team, the ones you know and then the ones you don't know. And then when you decide that something's up with the ones that you don't know where they are, you know, start looking around and think what makes most sense at that point. Alright guys, thanks for watching.